one of the people, in fact, who was hired, some of the people who were hired to harass the petition effort in Andy Dillon's district, that's the Speaker of the House, and they have turned in enough signatures, nearly twice as many as they needed, and so I think Dillon is going to face recall on August 5th. So all these harassment tactics were not successful, but unbelievable things. One of the people who were called blockers or voter educators, take your choice, was found to be an 8-time convicted felon, armed robber, and this is the kind of guy who's traveling around the city, paid by the Democratic Party in Michigan, to supposedly educate voters, when in reality what he's doing is intimidating people. They also had people who were on the state payroll, folks out of Andy Dillon's office in Lansing, Michigan, and of course once that was found out, they all conveniently were on vacation. These are the types of things that are happening increasingly in the initiative petition world. Petition or the referendum or the recall, they're really all part of the same citizen-initiated processes that allow us to check powerful government, and those in power don't like it. And so they like to overturn this entire system, and they do it often in the legislatures by passing laws that make the initiative process tougher and more expensive to use. They do it by hiring professional thugs, blockers. I don't know what the word for them is, because it's nearly a brand new creation. And they have even gone to the extent of officials like the Attorney General in Oklahoma trying to put people in prison for following rules that keep changing. So this is a real run behind the scenes of American politics, because most folks are focused on the presidential race or other issues. At the state and local level, the initiative process has been a tremendous force for citizens, from eminent domain to term limits to tax limits, and it's under severe attack.
Mm-hmm. I would say, I know most definitely recently, the last couple of years, the INR process has received a big jolt from the Kelo decision in the Supreme Court, and states and citizens in states taking up action and putting on the ballot anti-eminent domain measures, since they're now trying to push for private reasons, coming in and taking away lands. I mean, I know a lot of states have adopted that, while at the same time some states have adopted pseudo-eminent domain measures where they still have stipulation for blight and weird definitions like that, so the government can still take action. So you see this kind of resurgence in the initiative and referendum process due to eminent domain, but at the same time, you recently mentioned in a column, you talked about earmarks, hard and soft, and then you mentioned about how we can actually do something, we can take action, and you bring up Alex de Tocqueville's famous Democracy in America, how the individuals Americans organized, they joined committees, there was civic activism permeated through the society, and so we should have more of that. However, are you concerned at all about the future of initiative referendum, especially, when you mention Alex de Tocqueville, but at the same time someone like Robert Putnam wrote his book Bowling Alone, which famously talked about how our associations and our social capital has been dramatically decreasing over the years. The number of meetings we attend, the number of petitions we sign, the number of times we just have our friends over, it's dramatically decreasing in our society, and this maybe we can then point to why we have so much infringements of government upon our lives. Do you see any way of this being corrected? Do you think this is a problem? Do you think it's going to seriously hurt initiative referendum, just the way, we say pork is bad, but we think politicians are never going to do anything about it? What can I do about it? Do you think this is a problem? There's a serious problem with association in America?
I think, and you touch on maybe some different angles there, but I have to say I'm terrified about the future of initiative and referendum in America, and I'm terrified about the future of America. I've got a new grandkid. I've got a couple kids still at home. I'm getting to be an old man, and I think about the future, and frankly, I don't like what I see. And I'm not a doomsday, apocalyptic type fella. I I'm pretty optimistic, and I'll tell you what's good is that increasingly the American people get it on a base level. They recognize that the power structure doesn't pay much attention to them. I think most people have written off Washington. I think that there will be a resurgence of activity at the state and local level as more and more people do that, especially after this presidential election, which I think has kind of excited people a little bit, unfortunately, falsely. But I'm very concerned that, yes, people are working all the time. The economy is in a tight situation, but even when it isn't, it seems to me that you don't have the social institutions functioning as well as they maybe did in years past. And I think it is a problem, but that's a problem that people will sort it out. We'll figure out ways to have the social interaction we want. I'm not as worried about that from a sociological standpoint as I am from a political standpoint, because the difference is, if it's a sociological trend, then as people see it's not helpful, they move a different way and it changes. But in politics, without the initiative and referendum process, these legislatures, that doesn't matter if you're left, right, or in between, you recognize that they're broken, they're corrupt. They don't listen to the average person. They listen to all kinds of very powerful special interests that don't speak for the common people. And if we don't have this process to check the excesses of power politics, we're in a lot of trouble. And there are issues like term limits, any type of spending or tax limit, eminent domain reform. I mean, I think we all need to be a little bit frightened and disgusted by the fact that in America, your home's not your castle. In fact, if somebody in a position of power and a developer think they can take your property and turn it into a little bit more dough, you're kicked out on the street. I mean, that's the basic bottom line of eminent domain abuse. And without the initiative process, which was helpful even before Kelo kind of touched off a movement, in Lakewood, Ohio, for instance, when there was a big eminent domain effort underway, it was the local initiative process that allowed them to put it on the ballot and turn it around. And we have to have that sort of process. We're not free in America because we have angels in public office. We're free because we have processes by which citizens can hold government officials accountable. And that's really what I see as hopeful. Sam Adams Alliance is working on all kinds of new media things, wiki sites that give people the information, making government more transparent so that we can look at what they're spending. Ballotpedia, a new website that's out there to tell people what's happening on ballots all over the country, local, state level. Information is really going through a revolution that I think is going to be very, very helpful.
Right.
But it's critical that we have that process to constantly check government. And that's, I think, where we're vulnerable. And where I think we have to wake people up that this initiative process has to be protected if we're going to be able to move forward and keep control.
To what extent, though, would you like to see the initiative process have a role in the legislative process? Because, for example, you've mentioned the local level. We have a lot of states. The state level. I wish my state of Texas had I&R personally. We have a lot of room to go to build and just to have initiative referendum in most states. But we had Mike Gravel on a couple weeks ago, and he made this statement. He said that he'd like to see the constitutional amendments approved or rejected on the basis of national initiative, which would take place. The initiative, there would be 2 votes within a year period, and there would have to be a simple, I think maybe even a simple majority. I might be wrong there. Maybe it needs to be a supermajority.
Right. I'm pretty familiar with Mike Gravel's proposal, and know Mike. He's a good guy. I don't agree with him on all parts of his proposal because I think some of the setup in his view of a national initiative process, I just think is cumbersome and not likely to be very, very helpful. And I like the balance of powers and process at other levels of government. We need it at the federal level. I mean, my goodness, they wouldn't get away with the kind of pork and bridges to nowhere. You could collect signatures and put these types of pork-laden bills up to a referendum.